Please explain to me how April is just the month we decide to be more awful to one another. Hi, I'm Kate, and welcome to Always Tuck and Roll, where we discuss life, the universe, autism, and anything else that comes out of my head, because variety is the spice of life, and that's the only way I'm going to get any seasonings in this. So, today I thought that maybe we would continue down the special interest route a little bit, but not in the same way as last week. Today I want to talk about April. My least favorite month, actually. So why would I call it a special interest? Because I notice patterns, and April is a doozy of a month. Now, I started compiling a list on April 16th, 2007. Now, I happen to be recording this on April 16th. I believe this will be going up tomorrow, but I've met me, ADHD, all of the things. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. But so, the list is entitled, April is the Cruelest Month, which is a quote from T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland. And it is a list of tragedies, traumas, wars, famines. Actually, I should right here now say, viewer discretion is advised. Trigger warnings for death, murder, genocide, war. I'm not going into details. I am literally just looking at a bulleted list I have been compiling, again, from April 16th, 2007, and I stopped updating this list in 2020 because I wasn't sure how to... There was too much going on in 2020 to continue a tragedies list, you know? April 2020 was a tragedy. I have not gone back to this because I've been trying not to focus on the suck of it all, but I'm also fascinated by what April has to have, or has to offer historically, and I'm kind of curious just to see if anyone else is like, how can all of these things happen in 1 month? I am also going to say this is not an exhaustive list. This is just what I've compiled. I did go back into history when I started this list in 2007. And some days are darker than others. But without further ado, I guess let's get the show on the road, because we've got 30 days of trauma to cover here. So, April 1st, April Fool's Day, my least favorite day of the year. I've hated it since 1993. The reasons why are not on this list, but I will say that kids are mean, and I think that the whole holiday is stupid. I'm not opposed to jokes, but I want your jokes to be funny. And most pranks are harmful, not funny. But that's not what today is about. Today is about April and the suck of it all. So let's find out why April is the cruelest month. April 1st, 1917. The U.S. steamer Aztec was torpedoed, killing 28 crew members. In 1946, an undersea earthquake near Alaska triggered a tsunami that killed 159 people in Hawaii. And in 1984, Marvin Gaye was murdered by his own father. On April 2nd, in 1979, anthrax killed 62 people in Russia, and in 2005, Pope John Paul II died. On April 3rd, 1882, Jesse James was shot in the back. In 1974, there were 148 tornadoes that hit within the U.S. within 16 hours, killing more than 330 people. In 1996, a U.S. Air Force transport plane crashed, killing 38 people. On April 4th, in 1841, President Harrison died 1 month into his term. And then in 1865, oddly enough, President Abraham Lincoln had a nightmare about his assassination. In 1933, the airship, the USS Akron, crashed in New Jersey, killing 73 of 76 people on board. That was a Navy air vessel. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And in 1975, Operation Baby Lift crashed, killing over 138 people, most of whom were Vietnamese orphans. On April 5th, in 1936, tornadoes killed more than 200 people, injured 3,500 people across Mississippi and Georgia. In 1976, Howard Hughes died in a plane crash. In 1994, Kurt Cobain was removed from our mortal plane. And in 2010, the Upper Big Branch mine explosion occurred in West Virginia, killing 29 miners. I was actually close enough to feel the explosion. That and the many hours it took me to drive home were my only involvement, but that was a very intense time to be in West Virginia, I will be honest. April 6th, 1832, the Black Hawk War began. In 1862, the Battle of Shiloh began. In 1917, America entered World War I. In 1950, a train accident in Brazil killed 110 people. And in 1965, U.S. ground combat troops were sent to Vietnam for the first time, officially. April 6th, we got 3 wars. Yeah, there's a battle from a war that's already going on, but we got 3 wars just in one day. And we're not even a week in yet. April 7th, 1990, there were 2 ferry crashes. There was a ferry accident in Myanmar that killed more than 215 people. And on the same day in the same year, there was a ferry accident between Norway and Denmark that killed 110 people. And not to be outdone, in 1994, the Rwandan genocide began. That's week 1. On April 8th, 1916, during a road race in Corona, California, 5 people were killed when the car lost control, broke through the barrier, and went into the spectators. The driver, his ride-along mechanic, and 3 spectators were killed. And also in 1994, the discovery of Kurt Cobain was made. On April 9th, 1865, the Civil War ends. This is not a tragedy, but since it also starts on a later date this month, I thought it was interesting to include that. And also, let's give a shout out to poor Wilbur McLean, who had the Civil War start in his front yard, and then he moved and it ended in his parlor. Does he have good luck or bad luck? That is a question that I have struggled to answer since I learned about the poor guy. I would say he has luck. I don't know how to classify it, but I'm not good. I'm one of those my glass has stuff in it people. Let's move on and not get derailed. Right, we were on April 9th. 1940, Germany invaded Denmark and Norway. In 1947, a tornado killed more than 100 people in Oklahoma. And in 2013, 14 people were stabbed on a Texas campus. On April 10th, 1963, the USS Thresher sank, killing 129 sailors. In 1968, there was a ferry accident in New Zealand that killed 51. And in 1970, the Beatles broke up, because that was a tragedy. On April 11th, 1814, Napoleon was exiled to Elba. Not necessarily a tragedy, but it was the beginning of his end, and since he was such a prolific person, it felt like that was a noteworthy thing to do. Plus, I started this in college, so anything is possible. 1968, the last of the survivors from the New Zealand ferry accident were rescued. Hope they were not hypothermic. 1970, Apollo 13 launched. Again, not a tragedy, but the precursor to. Not a tragedy, but still a situation abnormal that just decided to happen in April. On April 12th, 1633, Galileo was executed for heresy. In 1861, the Civil War began. Again, let's remember Wilbur McLean, who had it start in his yard and end in his parlor, despite the fact he moved between those instances. Also on April 12th, 1864, Civil War related, was the Fort Pillow Massacre, where the Confederacy slaughtered 231 Union soldiers and wounded an additional 100 after they had surrendered. And yes, it was racially motivated. And in 1945, FDR died. On April 13th, 1360, a hailstorm killed an estimated 1,000 British troops in France. In 1861 was the surrender of Fort Sumter, which is part of the U.S. Civil War. 1919, I'm going to botch this and I'm really sorry, the Amritsar Massacre, where 379 Indians were killed at the hands of British troops. Actually, should probably go back and research more into that, because since it's not part of my history, I don't know that much. That just was part of this list that, again, I compiled like 18 years ago, or started compiling 18 years ago. Should really review. And 1970, the oxygen tank on Apollo 13 exploded. April 14th, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater. In 1912, Titanic hit an iceberg. In 1935, Dust Bowl storm the Black Sunday hit. And in 1944, an Indian cargo ship exploded, killing 1,300 and wounding an additional 3,000 people. We're 2 weeks in now. How you feeling about April? Is this too much? On April 15th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln succumbed to his injuries. And in 1912, so did the Titanic, killing over 1,000 people. In 2013 was the Boston Marathon bombing, with 3 dead and 144 egregiously injured. On April 16th, 1947, a Texas fertilizer plant exploded, killing 581 people. In 1975, the Cambodian genocide began. We're up to 2 genocides this month, by the way. And in 2007, the Virginia Tech massacre occurred, killing 32. I'd like to bring you back to the beginning of this video, where I said I started this list on April 16th, 2007. It's because when I found out about what was going on, and I was walking back to my apartment on campus, I was like, but this isn't the first April school shooting in my lifetime. And this is back when school shootings were still a big deal. I personally think they still are a big deal, and they should be stopped at all costs. And I don't know why that isn't a more popular opinion, but here we are. But I started this list when I realized that school shootings seem to happen in April. And then I dug deeper and found out the rest. And then time she kept on ticking. So, April 17th, 1790, Benjamin Franklin died. 1815, a volcanic eruption killed 80,000 people in Indonesia. In 1961, the Bay of Pigs invasion began. Not a tragedy, but a hilariously catastrophic embarrassment. Just wanted to throw that out there into the universe. Because April. And in 2013, in West Texas, a fertilizer plant exploded, killing 14 and injuring 200. That's 2 fertilizer plant explosions this month, by the way, if you're keeping score. April 18th, 1880, 151 people in Missouri were killed in tornadoes. And in 1906, the Great San Francisco earthquake occurred. That's right, we got tornadoes, we got earthquakes, we got all kinds of stuff this month. Let's keep going. April 19th, 1775, is the day that the American Revolution began. It's the day that the shot heard around the world, and Patriots' Day is a very, very important day. And fun fact, The Sudbury Militia marches every April 19th to Concord to reenact because they were late in 1775. So regardless of when the state of Massachusetts celebrates Patriots' Day, which they always do the third Monday in April. So this year it will be the 21st. It's also Marathon Monday if you're into long distance running competitions, the Boston Marathon, pretty big deal. But so the Sudbury Militia will probably take part in that, but they will march on the 19th, rain or shine, and have been for many years. And yeah, I do have some family members that have been involved over time. Moving along to the rest of April 19th, because we're not done with the 19th. 1902, there was an earthquake in Guatemala that killed 2,000 people. In 1943, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising occurred. In 1989, the Central Park jogger attack occurred. In 1993, the Waco siege came to a violent end, killing 76 Branch Davidians. And in direct response to that, in 1995, the Oklahoma City bombing occurred. It was literally in direct response, if you read any of the crazy manifesto, but it was a response to government overreach and overaction. And also the reason that you don't have daycares directly in federal buildings anymore. So let that percolate. April 20th, a day that lives on in infamy. We've got 1861, Robert E. Lee resigned from the Union Army, thus becoming a traitor, because Confederates are traitors. In 1889, Hitler was born. Speaking of people who suck. 1914. An anti-union militia slaughtered striking coal miners in Ludlow, Colorado, thus reminding us all why we need unions. And then in 1999, the Columbine Massacre occurred. That was the other thing when I realized Virginia Tech and Columbine were the same month. Was like, what's up with April? That's where this started. And in 2010, the Deepwater Horizon spill began. April 21st, 1777, the British troops attempted to burn down Danbury, Connecticut. Didn't work, I've been there. 1918, the Red Baron was shot down. Probably not a tragedy, except for to him. But it was notable enough to include. In 1930, 320 inmates were killed in an Ohio prison fire. That's the first. We are, 3 weeks in now? How you feeling about April? Because we're not done yet. We have 9 more days to go. So let's get to them. April 22nd, 1886, seduction was made illegal in Ohio. Not actually sure how that's prosecuted, but I'm 100% sure it would piss me off. 1915, the German army decided to start using chlorine gas against the Allies during World War I. Please explain to me how April is just the month we decide to be more awful to one another. And to round out the day, in 1992, the sewers exploded in Guadalajara, Mexico, killing 200 people. On April 23rd, 1014, the King of Ireland was murdered by Vikings. In 1967, a Soviet cosmonaut was killed. On April 24th, 1908, a tornado killed 143 people in Louisiana and Mississippi. In 1950, the Armenian genocide begins. And yeah, I don't care about your politics. That's a genocide. In 1916, the Easter Rebellion began. It kicked off years of war between Ireland and England and did eventually allow Ireland to gain its independence. Not a tragedy, just an important moment in history to remember. And in 1980, an Iranian hostage crisis rescue disaster where 8 soldiers were killed, no one was rescued, and I could go on and on and on about conspiracy theories over which former presidents are the cause of this. But I'm not gonna, because that's not what this is about. This is about April and the suck of it all. Does it suck for you? On April 25th, 1980, a plane accident occurred in the Canary Islands, killing 146 people. April 26, 1913, a woman named Mary Fagan was found murdered in a pencil factory, sending into motion the events that led to mass mob lynchings in Atlanta, Georgia. In 1986, the Chernobyl explosion occurred. And in 2013, there was a fire at a psychiatric hospital in Moscow, killing 38. April 27th, 1521, Magellan was killed in the Philippines. In 1773, Parliament passed the Tea Act. The Tea Act, not necessarily a tragedy, but did not go well for England, let's be honest. 1865, a steamship exploded, killing 1,547 Civil War vets, mostly Union soldiers, on their way home. 1978, the Afghan president was overthrown and murdered, thus eradicating rights for women. April 28th, 1789, mutiny on the HMS Bounty. Yeah, we're there. That's also an April event. Did you know? 1995, there was a gas explosion in South Korea that killed 100. In 1996, a gunman killed 35 people in Port Arthur, Tasmania. We're 4 weeks in. We got 2 more days. We got this. Let's do it. All right. April 29th, 1991, a cyclone killed 135,000 people in Bangladesh. In 1992, the Rodney King trial verdict came out. All 5 officers that beat him got off, and it set off 3 days of violent riots across LA. And one really killer song by Sublime. Also, in 2004, the very last Oldsmobile came off the line, which, not like a tragedy, but definitely like the end of an era. April 30th, last day, we've got 1888, 230 people in India were killed in a hailstorm. In 1945, Hitler removed himself from justice, we'll say. And in 1975, South Vietnam surrendered. That's 30 days. So, obviously, there are things in relation. So, Columbine happened on April 20th because Hitler's birthday was April 20th. They weren't Nazis per se. They were troubled youth who picked a date to be edgy. Correlation isn't causation, and I was talking to my therapist about this because we kind of talk about this every April that it comes up because I have this list. I know that, like, for me, April is hard. I don't sleep. The temperature's too erratic. The weather's too erratic. I crawl out of my skin almost. And it turns out that there's something to it. There's like a powder keg brewing in a lot of people, especially if they have poor emotional control or other like mood disorders or something. There is correlation that people will snap this time of year. And, I always thought it was just me, and then I thought it was this pattern. So I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe we're getting... Spring is hard. Spring is all about change. And remember, you could go any day and find tragedy after tragedy. You dig deep enough into history. You dig into every month. I'm sure there's other months, but this month to me has always felt like a bizarre microcosm of like, what is even happening here? Obviously not an exhaustive list, and I never actually collected sources, but if it happened during my lifetime, I'm a source. I remember a lot of the things that I put in this from there. So, if you have things you would love to add to the list, anything I might have left off or just don't know about, or you want to expand on more, please put that in the comments. I'm always down for learning more information. If I have made an error, please let me know. I don't love to be corrected, but I hate to be wrong even more, so please correct me. Tell me the correct information. I would love to have it. And, Try not to focus on the suck. It's hard to know which way's up and which way's down and maintain your sanity, so evaluate. Take stock. Are you okay? I hope you are. I don't know if any of this makes sense. It does to me. And I would love to hear your thoughts. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. It's April. Wear a helmet. And when all else fails, don't forget to chuck and roll.